Midnight on a restless ocean. A lone wooden ship creaks and groans as swells lifted under a moonless sky. The air is thick with salt and dread. A sailor clings to the railing, knuckles white, scanning the dark waves for any sign of danger. Suddenly, something massive brushes the hull beneath the water, jolting the vessel. A shout comes from the crow's nest. The lookout has spotted something. The crew rushes to the port side and peer into the black abyss. Through the mist and spray, an immense shadow moves under the waves, longer than the ship itself. Men exchange terrified glances as the shadow rises toward the surface. Without warning, towering tentacles erupt from the sea, slick and coiling. One whips across the deck, knocking men off their feet. Another wraps around the main mast with a wet slap, the timber shuddering under unimaginable force. "Kraken!" a sailor screamed, voice barely audible over the howl of wind and chaos. The ship tilts violently as the Leviathan's weight pulls it sideways. Crew members scramble for axes and knives. A brave captain draws his cutlass, eyes wide but determined, and slashes at the monstrous arm wrapped around the mast. The creature's roar echoes, a deep, unearthly sound, as if the ocean itself is growling. In a sudden rush, the tentacles uncoil and vanish into the depths, leaving behind a wreck of torn sails and splintered railings. Did they just imagine it, or did a legend rise from the deep this night? Tales like this have haunted sailors for centuries. From the cold waters of the North Atlantic came whispered warnings of a colossal sea monster that could strike without warning. They called it the Kraken, a name derived from the old Norwegian word krak, meaning a fabulous sea monster. But is there any truth behind these nightmares? Is the Kraken real? The legend of the Kraken runs deep. As far back as the medieval era, Norse sagas spoke of the Hafgufa, the hugest monster in the sea, a beast so large it could be mistaken for an island. Fishermen in Icelandic tales would anchor next to what looked like a new island to gut their catch, only to flee in terror when the island began to sink, revealing a living giant beneath. In Scandinavian folklore, the Kraken was said to linger beneath schools of fish, using them as bait. One old story tells of fishermen delighted by an unusually rich catch, unaware their boat actually sat atop the Kraken's back. When their hooks snagged in its flesh, the mighty creature slowly rose, creating a whirlpool as it emerged. Only those who realized the danger and shouted its name survived. The Kraken would hear and supposedly sink back down to the depths. By the 1700s, such sea monster tales had grown so persistent that even scholars took note. The Norwegian bishop and naturalist Erik Pontoppidan compiled fishermen's accounts in his 1755 book, The Natural History of Norway, dedicating an entire chapter to the Kraken and other uncommon sea animals. Pontoppidan described the Kraken as a colossal cephalopod-like creature lurking off the coasts of Norway and Iceland, though he did so carefully, aware that insisting on its existence could ruin his scientific credibility. For centuries, scholars argued while sailors kept seeing the same thing: something huge, something alive. Whatever the Kraken was, it didn't stay in books, it stayed in the water. Then reality caught up with legend. In the 1800s, massive tentacles began washing ashore. Not stories, not drawings, real flesh, too large to ignore. The creature had a name now: giant squid. But naming it didn't make it less terrifying. This thing lived where sunlight never reached and rarely came up alive. Even today, giant squids are ghosts. Most were discovered dead. For centuries, no one had seen one alive in the wild, almost like the ocean didn't want us to. Then in 2004, it happened. A camera caught one alive, moving, attacking, watching back. And suddenly, the Kraken didn't feel mythical anymore. It felt incomplete. Because here's the problem. Giant squids are enormous, but sailors described something bigger, something that dragged ships, something that caused whirlpools. So what if the Kraken wasn't wrong, just unfinished? In 1978, a U.S. Navy ship returned to port with its sonar dome shredded. Embedded in it were massive suction cup hooks, bigger than any known squid. No official explanation, no follow-up, just silence, and sailors who stopped laughing about sea monsters. Here's something even more unsettling. Over 80% of the ocean remains unexplored. We know more about Mars than our own seabed. In that darkness, pressure crushes steel, light disappears, and evolution plays by different rules. Bigger bodies, slower movement, less energy. Perfect conditions for something massive and patient. Sailors once said the Kraken slept for centuries, rising only when disturbed. So what if ships didn't get attacked? What if they woke something up? Most Kraken sightings vanish under scrutiny. Rocks, waves, whales, but not all of them. Because sometimes the ocean gives us scars, ships damaged, sonar lost, whales covered in sucker marks the size of dinner plates. If squids can fight whales, what happens when something fights a ship? So is the Kraken real? The legendary island-sized monster? Probably not. But the idea behind it, a giant, intelligent deep-sea predator, absolutely is. And as long as most of the ocean remains unseen, the Kraken isn't dead. It's just unconfirmed.